Welcome to Beyond the Billboard, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of out-of-home advertising. I'm Greg Wise, and I've spent years helping brands navigate the world of marketing and media planning.
And I'm Charlie Riley. I've spent 2 decades leading marketing teams who've pondered the same question about out-of-home. If you're a growth-focused marketer looking for data-driven ways to stand out, you're in the right place. Let's get started.
Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Billboard. I'm Charlie Riley, head of marketing at OneScreen, who's powering this podcast. My co-host, Greg Wise, can't make it today, but we're joined by an awesome guest, a friend of ours at OneScreen, Madhav Bhandari, who is the head of marketing at Storylane. And we were chatting before. We always say this, we should record ahead of time. We have great conversations before. We should always just hit record as soon as we get on board with someone, because we were just chatting about The Office, their awards that they're doing we can get into that a little bit, and where we're heading. It's getting into marketing event season coming up, and I think we're all going to be out on the road, and it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun meeting up with everybody. So, Madhav, great to connect with you again. It's been fun working with you before here at OneScreen, but yeah, what have you been up to? Can you give us a little bit of a background on Storylane, and we can jump into all things marketing that we were chatting about before I hit record?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me on the show. Yeah, for context, I run marketing at Storylane. It's a AI native demo automation platform. So demo automation, just an interactive way to educate your buyers about your product. And it's a relatively new category that came in about 3 years ago, really exploding, and we're one of the top players in the space. Right now, I've been spending a lot of my time on just building out generally influencer program. We're also investing very heavily in events. I think we're doing almost 40 conferences this year, 40 events plus conferences. It's quite a lot from last year. Last year was 12. So there's a heavy, I was telling you, work travel season coming up. September, October is always busy every year. So yeah, just a bunch of that apart from regular household things. Yeah.
I know you share quite a bit on LinkedIn, and you talk a little bit about how you've built marketing, and you've done a great job at Storylane doing that. It sounds like you are doubling down and really investing in real life marketing, and you getting out, shaking hands with other marketers. And we talk about that as quite a bit as out of home, as in the real world. But you're all in on brand marketing. What we like to ask this of most guests, what's your definition of brand marketing? How do you see the ever evolving thought process about what brand marketing is? But what's your definition of that?
I think for us, there were a couple of reasons why we just started heavily investing in brand. I think one was just the standard 95-5 rule in every category, especially the newer categories, that 5% of the market is aware, or in the decision-making phase in your category, 95% isn't. And so the 5% is where most competitors are fighting for. 95% is this green field. So there, basically, how do we get to the 95%, become the first vendor that they consider, and then that gives us a pretty heavy advantage when they actually go into the decision phase. So that was one reason. And then the other thing also is brand investment is something, is just there's no upper limit on that, right? You can keep investing. So with SEO ads, there's a limit. After a point, it just stops working. There's just not enough keywords to cover and all that. With brand, it's just you can keep growing bigger and bigger. It's just a lot more that you can bring out of it. And then I think the last is just with brand, it's right now we live in a world where search is screwed up a little bit, in the sense that there's spammy search results everywhere, but also search engines are sort of eliminating your traffic completely. There's impressions are going up, but clicks are going down. And it's happening across ad platforms everywhere. So your real moat is brand, right? People actually searching you irrespective of what channel, whether that's on a newsletter or a LLM or Google or whatever, right? And if you can get there, you're so strong. So I think these are just some of the reasons why we started doing that. And at this point right now, we pretty much drive more than half of our demos and customers and revenue from brand at this point.
I want to dig into that, because measuring that impact is always a question, especially when it comes to out of home. And I think your definition's spot on, where all those things add up. And probably what you do at Storylane around you're giving prospects the ability to learn about a product when it's important on their timeline, not maybe a salesperson's timeline. that's probably as much of the definition or maybe the epitome of what brand marketing is now, is everybody has access to so much information that they can educate themselves, and there's no traditional sales funnel anymore. So what your product, you're whatever, eating your own dog food, drinking your own champagne, whatever the analogy is about what you're selling and how you're thinking about going to market. Have you thought about that? Or have you just, there's a really good correlation there with how you are educating your prospects about your product, but just as a marketer, you're talking the talk with that.
Yeah. I mean, I, I think first of all, like the way you described it is fantastic. Like it was very eloquently put. So 100%. Yeah, and I think it works really well. Like for us, it's more like when you work with higher ACV, right? There's like a ton of multi-threading that's happening, but also attribution is it's getting really hard. It's very multi-touch, right? There's no like singular source where it influences the outcome of the deal, right? So they're seeing you in communities, they're seeing you on LinkedIn, they're seeing your name pop up in an in-person event or in some WhatsApp chat. And yeah, the goal for us is just how do we keep, I guess, reaching there. And then with the product itself, right, 100%. So what we basically try to do is like, how can we surface the right demo for the right buyer at the right stage? That's a big part of like how we do it. So we've been investing into like sales agents that go and talk to people. And like depending on like somebody who's just casually browsing or somebody who's like literally comparing us with a competitor, there's a demo for that. So it does fit in fairly well for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, especially I love the examples you've shared online around how you've used your own product to almost SEO, and like you said, SEO is changing, but you've used that to draw eyeballs in. But yeah, brand marketing is helping people. You're telling a story, maybe not as much trying to impact them right away to make that decision. It's on their end. And I know you're an advocate of out of home. You've used out of home. That's usually one of the first things that someone thinks about from a channel standpoint around what brand marketing is. How have you seen maybe out of home advertising fit into brand marketing, but just even maybe the environment shift a little bit where marketers are investing more in brands? So naturally, that would probably mean an investment more in seeing real world ads through out of home channels.
Yeah. So I think the way we see it is just whenever we do events, we haven't seen a lot of success with really large events, but like with smaller events is where we see a lot of good results. And there's like this whole sort of philosophy inside the marketing team, like how do we break patterns, right? Like how do we not really have a booth at a conference, or how do we sort of basically get in front of 100% of the audience there, because that's the goal when we show up, right? So I think, yeah, like that, what we did at Exit 5 is a perfect case study about out of home, right? One of my favorite examples, I'd say. I think it's just, yeah, like I'm just for context, right? We missed the boat into sponsoring that event. I think we got to know later, whatever. And then we decided, like, hey, what could be another unique way? And I think we reached out to your team and they suggested some options. But I think what was surprising to me is just that for us, it was initially going to be like, okay, we'll just put something out there and just be able to make sure that people see it and all of that. But it wouldn't be very possible to measure it. And then we got such amazing tips from both Abby and Hannah on, okay, you should add a QR code inside your billboard. And hey, you could have that sort of geotagging and we could get contacts from there and all that. And I just realized that, yes, there's been quite a lot of progress there. Like we can measure it to some extent. And so the truck was really well received. Like, I think pretty much 100%. Yeah, like you were there, right? And I was part of the community as well. So I saw a bunch of posts there. I think 100% of the people actually saw that truck. It was like a mobile billboard truck. And we basically put it up outside of the hotel where most of the attendees were also outside of the main conference area. And we were just so lucky that the conference is actually very outdoorsy. So everybody came out, everybody saw the truck, everybody talked about it. And then there was like, yeah, like I feel like that was like one sort of a pattern trapped. And then what was interesting was that right after that, we saw a couple of other brands also do that. I think that was another sort of campaign that I really liked. It wasn't ours, obviously, but it was someone else. But I really like that campaign that Freshworks did at Dreamforce, where they put up like this balloon in the sky which said Salesforce. And it just got such create attention without spending like 100, 200K just to be a sponsor. One of the, I don't know, 100 sponsors at Dreamforce. Right? So yeah, and I'm pretty surprised. Like obviously I still need to catch up on like what are some other ways to measure it, but there are a lot of techniques now that you can sort of do. Like we've also like I think in one of the activations we also put like a QR code where like they could scan the QR code and actually experience the interactive demo of the product on their phones. You could literally have somebody see your billboard, take the product in their phone and take it back home with you, which is just like these things weren't like you couldn't. I mean, these are all ideas that nobody had earlier, but now they're like common playbook, I would say.
I think you gave really great context of, I think it would fall under ambush marketing, but you found a way to insert your brand at an event that you weren't a primary sponsor at. And I think that's one way that we've seen brands see out of home as a way to attach yourself to an event. And like you gave some really good examples there. I think a Dreamforce event, it's huge. And a lot of brands probably can't afford to be one of 1,000, someone stuck in the corner. But instead of investing in that booth, the PR and the organic search that comes from and the social shares that you can like, all of that is a way to measure effectiveness. And then your sales team can go back and look at who commented on that. There's a prospect there. You can go reach out to them. So there are ways that you can do that. And the Exit 5 team was great about, it's tough when you do an activation like that, but I think people were talking about your truck, your mobile truck, that on the speakers were talking about that. That's an added value of something like an execution like that you don't know, you can't pay for. So I think that added value is there. And you guys did a great job with it. I thought it was great. And like you said, the timing of that worked out incredibly with really beautiful weather, but you also had a measurable piece there, your product tied back to a way that someone could do that.
Do you want to run your own account-based marketing program, but you're feeling overwhelmed by complex jargon, expensive tech stacks, and unclear strategies? Scrappy ABM Podcast offers proven strategies and actionable plays that you can use to get started with quick wins. Learn at your own pace, simplify ABM to start seeing real results. Visit Scrappy ABM Podcasts or tune into the Scrappy ABM Show wherever you listen to podcasts.
You talked earlier, Madhav, about just measuring brand as 50% of your opportunities and business. How do you measure brand overall in general? Like not just out of home, but how do you get back to those numbers?
Ooh, that's a big one. So I'll tell you a couple of ways. One more like direct sort of attribution, and the other sort of indirect. So when it comes to direct attribution, there's three sort of ways that I look at it, right? One is we basically added in the demo request form a question like, how do you hear about us? And it's a blank sort of text form. It's not like a drop down with pre-selected options, because that allows us to get context, right? And that's one sort of data point for you, just to see that, oh, I came from word of mouth. Oh, a colleague recommended. Oh, I saw you guys on LinkedIn, right? All of that would fit into brand, right? And to some extent, right? The other thing also is like if you look at your brand searches in Google search, right? So how your impressions and clicks for your particular brand search is growing or dropping or whatever, right? Based on your investments in brand. So like I can see over the last 16 months. 16 months is like the longest period you can see in GSC, in Google Search Console. But in 16 months, I can see that, okay, 16 months ago, we were 1/3 of the average brand searches that we are at today. And I can see that, for example, the day we did the Exit 5 activation where the truck was there was like this huge surge. And what's funny is that the number of impressions in that surge was like 3x the number of people actually attending the event. So that's another funny bit. So it wasn't just all the attendees, it was also probably some people that talked about it with like somebody they knew, or maybe put it on LinkedIn, or maybe something spread the word. Maybe somebody sent a picture on the community and people saw it and then recommended. So that was like the unattributable effects of it. So anyway, so brand search is another interesting one that we look at. And then also there's also like a checkpoint that we have later towards in, like when the salespeople are talking, right? We have of course, we have an AI agent. So we have a agent set up which basically scans through the call transcript to try to find any mention of how they heard about us, right? That's like our sort of checkpoint. That's like later stage when somebody is like really actively in the deal cycle. And that also gives us a data point. These are all like attributable ways, like how much traffic are you getting and all of that. But then there's like this unattributable bit, which is pretty insane from what we've seen. One is, how much inbound boot traffic do you get at events? In 23, we didn't invest anything in brand. People used to just pass by our brand, our booths at events. The same conference, we set up the booth next year and we had fairly decent traffic. And this year it's just been insane. Like it's just, there's no need for a cold introduction. Like we hardly meet any people that are like, they haven't heard about us, which makes life so much easier. And that's why there's like this growing investment in events and all, because we're seeing a lot more boot traffic come in. It's just the second order effects are insane. It's a lot more easier for us to hire influencers because they know about our brand. It's a lot more easier to get talent, like just some of the top talent into our team because they know about our brand and they love working with us, right? There's so many effects that are in there. And the simple thing is like I see in my DMs like every single day there's 10 messages from like a prospect in the pipeline saying that, listen, your brand strategy is the reason why I'm like you're sort of leading versus the other competitors. And the thing is, we also operate in a category like many other categories where 80% of the features are the same between all the vendors. So what's your differentiation? What's your moat? And brand is what will protect you from it. Like how likable is your point of view and the way you present things versus your competitors? That actually makes quite a big difference. So I think it's a lot of things, I would say.
I love that. So a lot of things there, a lot of great things. How the moat thing, you're right. Like there's so much commoditization now, if that's the right word to say, for probably a lot of prospect or products and categories. But how likable is your brand? That's a really great takeaway for a lot of people. I think the other thing that we've seen working with brands that you talked about, like the digital space, like there's ad fatigue there, and we've helped someone implement an out of home campaign that goes alongside with that. But we show them like exactly how you said that. Look at your search traffic in a control region versus the area that we ran ads. Guarantee there's going to be an uplift when someone sees a billboard enough times and they pair that with a digital campaign, they're going to go search for that. So I love how you highlighted several ways that a marketer can track that. But at the end of the day, it's going to take some time for that to build up. But that's an awesome example. Like you said, 3 years ago, no one knew who you were maybe. And over the last 2 years, you've probably had to invest less money to be able to have more people know who you are and come have a conversation with you. I love that definition. That's great.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually didn't know about this until you mentioned it that because now our brand search volume is a lot, it's hard to pinpoint to a surge in brand searches just based on one event because those brand searches keep happening here and there. But it's interesting that if you can isolate it by city, right, which is super easy in analytics, you can do, right? And let's say, for example, inbound is happening in SF this year on a particular day. Yeah, like that's a really interesting takeaway for me, I would say. Like I think with brand, just life becomes really easy. I'm really not kidding. You go to events, forget events, you even reach out to people. It's just so easy to just have conversations with people because they're like, oh, I've seen your content on LinkedIn. Oh, I've seen what you guys do at Storylane, all of that, right? So that whole cold open just completely goes away. And that just allows you to go into the meat of the conversation. So yeah.
I love that. I think for any marketer listening, you've encapsulated a couple really good ideas of just one, embracing brand, because we've all talked about it for a while. The demand playbook is it's just not feasible. It costs too much and people don't like being talked at. They want to talk with you. And I think that's why we've seen a resurgence at events. People want to have in real life conversations. They want to see things, shake a hand and see someone in 3D. So I love that. I think that's some good takeaways. And I think your examples of that and those ancillary benefits of investment in brand, you're able to recruit higher talent. You're able to recruit influencers. You're paying less probably for people to show up at your booth, or you're seeing a better ROI on the number of meetings you have at an event. I love that. Those are all really good takeaways. Yeah, you're going to be at a lot of events coming up. Like, where are you going to be in the fall? What are some other big bets that you're maybe placing this year?
So there's a couple of things. Like we'll be at the big ones whether that's Inbound, Dreamforce. We're going to be at Exit 5. We're going to be at the Product Marketing Alliances. I mean, like there's 40 conferences. There's quite a lot, but mostly it's some of the MarTech conferences, particularly, and some of the more sort of revenue focused ones, so like Pavilion and all of that. Will definitely be there. And yeah, I think at this point right now, there's a lot of activation ideas that we're always constantly thinking about, right? And I think I strongly believe what worked. I mean, like even when we did Exit 5 last year, like I was pretty sure that this year, if the conference organizers would allow it, there would be like 4 trucks there because every marketers love to copy each other, right? So you got to constantly keep innovating. And so this year, I don't know, but like, we might actually come up with some different sort of activations, right? Every year has to be different. Every year you got to keep experimenting. So still testing some ideas, but hopefully we'll finalize something soon.
We'll get you a blimp for this conference season. We'll go a little bit bigger than trucks this year. We can wrap a blimp too as well.
That'll be amazing.
There's a lot of cool ideas, but you're right. I think the biggest form of flattery is seeing other marketers use your ideas. But yeah, I just from being there and being a part of that campaign, like you said, maybe just to wrap this up, those ancillary benefits of the search volume was bigger than the amount of people that were there. I saw your campaign shared in places. That's just how some of these things work now. And that's how that brand gets expanded. So I love the ways you talked about getting that anecdotal feedback from a forum, because someone's going to give you some of that feedback that you can utilize, and just being able to measure a couple different ways. That's really helpful. So Madhav, where can people find you? I know you're very active on LinkedIn, but how can people get in touch with you?
LinkedIn is the best place. Yeah, I'm fairly active there. Yeah.
You're a great follow there. You share a lot of great insight, especially just being real about where you're spending time and how your team's working. So appreciate you joining us today. Appreciate your appreciation for Out of Home. And I'm sure we'll see each other at some of these events in the coming year. But we appreciate you joining. And for my co-host, Greg Wise, who couldn't join us, he'll be back for the next couple episodes. But thanks for tuning in to another edition of Beyond the Billboard. And we'll talk to you again about marketing, brand, advertising, and a couple episodes of The Office very soon. Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in to Beyond the Billboard.
If you liked what you heard, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. And if you found value today, share this with a fellow marketer who should be thinking bigger about out-of-home advertising.
If you're looking for a template to build your out-of-home program, visit onescreen.ai to get a free media plan, or connect with us on LinkedIn for all the latest out-of-home insights.
This has been Beyond the Billboard. We'll see you next time.